Hello and welcome to Yesterday's Airlines and a happy new year to everyone. It is time for the first release ranking video of 2025, and that dubious honour goes to JC Wings, who actually announced their January announcements just before Christmas at the end of December. And JC Wings have got 20 new model announcements for us for January, though it is a slightly unusual setup from JC for this set because there are a lot of future announcements. Of those 20, only 6 are models which are scheduled to arrive reasonably quickly, and the other 14 are future announcements which tend to arrive substantially later. Now, JC's been getting a bit better at this in recent times. And their future announcements, which have historically sometimes taken multiple years to show up, have been appearing a little bit quicker. In fact, just this last week, 4 or 5 of JC's future announcement models did get their official photographs. So, for example, we've got an Austrian Airlines 7879, which was announced back in July. Got the pictures have just arrived for that, OELPM. There's also the Go Australia 7879 Qantas, which was announced in September, so that's actually relatively quick for them. Then there's also an Air Canada 787, the Felicitations model, which I was also announced last year at some point as well. And then there's a couple of others. There's an Air Koryu IL62. There's a very attractive Garuda A330 wearing a special scheme. And there is also a Comair 737 MAX, which is wearing the British Airways livery. As you may recall, Comair did where the BA scheme they operate as a franchise in South Africa before they went bankrupt. I think that was last year they went bankrupt. And that was, I believe, an announcement from April. So there have been a few models which have been getting out recently of those future announcements. So perhaps the fear involved in ordering future announcements from JC is less than it was. And I believe that this pattern of releases here is due to the fact that JC are finally beginning to empty out that warehouse of models that they've had hanging around for so long. And so they are getting to the point where they have to make completely new models each month, as opposed to just going away and seeing what's left in the warehouse. So that is kind of the look of this set of JC releases. I've got some good feelings about JC this year. I have been talking a bit with them. I know they've got some interesting models coming out that fit more closely to my kind of interests. They also have looked back through their old model catalogue or their old release catalogue and looked at models that they perhaps could re-release that they've made a long time ago and could do with a re-release. So there are some of those coming as well. So I think that there's actually a good stock of interest for JC in 2025. But let's get on and have a look at what they've announced at this very first set. As I say, it's quite unusual in the sense that there's only a small number of ready soon models, and mostly future ones. Now, before I do that, obviously, as always, don't forget to chuck a like on the vid and subscribe to the channel. It's a new year and there's a lot of cool content coming up here on YouTube and on my other channels, Instagram, Yesterday Airlines there, and obviously at yesterdaysairlines.com. I've just received a big box of models. In fact, I've received multiple big box of models already this year, so I've got new samples and new models to take a look at from brands like HX models and NG models and Panda models. There's a lot of cool stuff coming, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel here and follow me at my other socials. Thanks very much, but let's get on and check out these January announcements. So what we're going to do is we'll take a look at the 6 models which are going to arrive, reasonably quickly, probably within the 3 to 4 months, and then we'll have a look at the other models that are going to be arriving later on. Starting with a United Airlines 737-900ER. This one's registered N37437 and it's wearing the Unicorn scheme. So that's 3 liveries or 2 liveries, depending on if you count the Dreamliner variant, away from the current scheme. JC have got more latitude nowadays to release American airliners as long as they're not wearing the current scheme. So I believe that's generally the way things work. I'm not sure about this one though. I'm not an enormous fan of the JC Wings 737 Next Generation molds, though the 900 generally seems a bit better than the 800. There have been quite a few United 739s in recent times in variants of this scheme, special versions. NG went mental in August and released 4. And they also released a couple in June 2022, including the standard colours here. They released N66828. This is not going to compete with that. But it has been a while since a standard colours one was released. Yeah, this one doesn't hold a lot of interest in me. I'm going to put this one into workhorse, and that's perhaps a little generous. Next up is a more interesting model and another classic American. This one is a 747-100 in the colours of Pan Am. The reg is N734PA. It's Clipper Champion of the Seas. This one is not wearing the Pan Am delivery colours. This is wearing the 1976, post-1976 scheme, where you've got the new titles that are significantly larger, and you've got the Pan Am, the letters are closer together. You've also got the flag is italicised or slanted on the tail, a bit bigger too, and on the 747-100s, the cheat line ends before the nose. So there are significant differences to the delivery colours. And brands tend to seem to like this scheme more than they like the delivery colours for some reason. I don't really understand that. So if we look at what's been made, there have been quite a few Pan Am 747s, though lots of them are really, really hard to find. Just last year, Aero Classics released an aircraft that was, at least in theory, wearing this scheme. They released N741PA, Clipper Kit Carson, but their 747, much in keeping with the 747s that they made last year, was frankly a complete mess. I bought the model and I kind of wish I hadn't, which kind of goes for most of the 747s I made. I mean, if you look at the errors on it, they completely got the cheat line wrong at the nose. There's no record of this aircraft or any Pan Am 747 with a cheat line that looks like the one that they've put, where it finishes just at the nose cone. They've painted the engine pylons grey, and for some reason where they join the wing is also grey. The seam line around the fuselage is kind of, well, it's great, it's just chunky, it's not great. The tail cone on the mould is not properly finished, and they couldn't even print the tail logo straight. So they're a complete disaster, really, which was in keeping with the Aero Classic 747. So that one isn't really much in the way of competition. Gemini also made, in 2015, so quite a while ago now, N652PA, wearing this livery, and that one looks like it turned out quite well. That's Clipper Mermaid. They didn't have most of the issues that Aero Classics have. They put a bit more effort in. Though the mould is really old, and that's the one thing I've got to say here. This is likely to be the mould I think that JC Wings use. It's probably going to be this Gemini mould, which is a very old mould, though it's been updated with aerials and rolling gear. It's fine, but look at the wing join, look at the nose shape, look at the rudder. It's not a modern mould, and there are quite a few modern 747 moulds that are close to getting to market, assuming that the brands use them correctly. So yeah, I don't know. It's very much hedging your bets, getting 747s on these older moulds, but I completely understand why you might, and even I'm tempted. So I'm going to put this one in the high flyer, but just be aware there are other 747 moulds that are coming to market, NG models, HX models, which are better than this, and if they get used, then you would expect some Pan Am 747s on you, but that's always the question. Next model on the list, not as interesting, and this one is a Swiss 777-300ER. The reg is HB Juliet November Golf. There have been a few Swiss 777s made historically. The most recent was by Phoenix in December 2021. Aviation 400 also made one that year. There were special schemes too, but I'm talking standard ones. JC did make one way back in 2016. So this is the first time that they've made one in nearly a decade even, and yeah, I'm sure it'll be nice. I mean, I'm a big fan of the JC 777 and 300 mold, so I think it will be nice, and it's going to be a perfectly good model. It's not exciting me though, so I'm going to workhorse it since it is a remake and there are multiple other versions out and about. Model number 4 is a new mould, effectively, for JC, though Gemini have released one model on it so far. It is the Bombardier CRJ 1000. The only, I believe, current operator of the type is Air Nostrum, so there's not a lot of scope for producing models on this, though I get the feeling we will be seeing a Garuda version. They don't fly it anymore, but they did. In fact, I know we will be at some point in the future. Maybe not as a standard release, though. And there aren't many other airlines. Brit Air is another operator, and one of the larger operators, they don't fly it anymore. What we've got here is another Air Nostrum, because the Gemini release from August last year was also Air Nostrum, but that one was in the standard scheme. This one is wearing a special scheme, which I believe celebrates Burgos, city of gastronomy, it says, though when you look at the scheme it looks more like it's, oh yes, there is a city of gastronomy logo at the front. There's also something advertising the cathedral, so it generally seems to be a general Burgos advertising livery on this. I've never even heard of Burgos as a place, but I'm sure it's a beautiful place in Spain. Look at the pictures of the model, which this one's actually got model images available. It looks pretty decent, but I am a little bit put off by the nose gear on this CRJ 1000 mould. It's very long. I know I've seen pictures of the CRJ 1000. The nose gear isn't as long as this, and when you look at the pictures, it's clear that the nose gear on this mould is not great. I mean, the nose gear doors are too small. The rear door does not position itself correctly next to the gear leg. The gear leg is chunky and a bit too long. So, you know, and these CRJs did have a bit of a nose down attitude, and I would argue that it's not quite correct on this mould. So I'm not loving the nose gear on these CRJ 1000s. So the rest of the mould looks pretty damn good, though. It's not the end of the universe by any stretch, but this scheme, yeah, it's not really exciting me. It's just a special scheme version of the one that was made before, and not a very special scheme. So I'm just going to put this one into workhorse. So that's a shame, because it's effectively a new aircraft type for JC, but it's not very interesting. A Brit Air CRJ 1000 would have been substantially more interesting. Okay, the last two models which we've got to discuss of the soon-to-be released aircraft are both McDonnell Douglas products, and the first one is an excellent model. It is the MD-81, which was modified to have the prop fan engine on it, N980DC. Now, I think I may have even seen this aircraft in person at Farnborough in the late 80s when I went with my dad, and it's a substantial engine. And these prop fan engines always look kind of crazy because you've got this huge dual rotating fan blades on them, and you have to say that the model work here looks spectacular. It looks really, really good. Super impressive, and the model looks wonderful. Now, I think that JC have made this in 200 scale already, which I guess means they've been able to downsize it to 400, and that's fabulous. Much like the prop fan 727-100 from last year, these are super unique, super interesting, and it's a nice scheme as well. I have to say that I think that the JC MD-8 is actually looking better here. I don't know if they've made any mods to it, but the nose area is looking substantially better, and the finished model that I'm seeing in the pictures here really shines. This is a model I'm already pre-ordered, and I will probably review when I get it. I think this one is looking like one of the models of the year already. It looks superb. So this one, without a doubt, is supersonic in my book. I think this is looking like a really, really impressive model. And the last model to check out of the soon-to-come releases is China Eastern Airlines MD-90 B2265. JC have made China Eastern MD-90 once before in 2014. They made B2270. I own that model. This one is fundamentally the same, but they've added the aerials in. It looks good, and the MD-90 model from JC is nice. The aerials do look a little oversized. which isn't too unusual for JC. But the rest of the models looking great, and it's been 11 years since they made one last. So I think this one will sell well in China, and it's a good option. I probably won't bother replacing the one that I have already because aside from the aerials, pretty much looks the same. But it's going to be a really nice model, and I think it's worthy of a high flyer myself. It's hard not to high flyer MD-90s, to be honest. You don't get that many of them. It's a cool looking aeroplane. So those are the 6 models which JC are likely to release soon, though 3 of them come only with artwork and without pictures of the actual finished product. But the CRJ and the 2 MDs both have images of the real models. We've now got 14 other models to take a look at, and I'm going to try and get through these reasonably quickly, partly because we're not sure exactly what they're going to end up looking like, and we're not sure when they're going to get released. So a lot of these are modern and new modern releases and wearing special schemes. All of those things decrease their interest to me, but maybe not to you. So we're going to start with a couple of A320neos. My dislike of the JC A320neo mould is well known because of the size of the engines. The first one up here is Etihad Airways. It's got a Chennai Super Kings livery associated with it. Chennai Super Kings is an Indian cricket side with a quite cool lion logo. The scheme is colourful. I'm not really sure that blue and yellow go together, I have to say, but it's colourful. It doesn't thrill me in any way, and it's not what I'm going to be getting, and the mould is pretty ordinary, but hey, it's colourful, and I imagine it'll sell well, especially among Indian collectors, so yeah, it's going to be okay. And recent Neos have been looking a bit better, I admit. I'll put it in workhorse. Next up, we've got Latam Brazil, PRXB Papa, and this one has also got a small special scheme, and I think it says Brazil Foanda. I haven't actually even looked in big detail at the livery. Haven't been that many Latam Brazil A320s. There has been the green coloured version by JC, but again, that's a future release, hasn't been released yet as well. So yeah, again, it's calling out workhorse to me. It's not so bad, the mould, that in this case that I think it deserves gas guzzler, but they're close. As release choices, are not bad. I wonder if anyone else will make them. Hard to say. Next up, we got a couple of A321s. First one up is an Eva Air B16217. It's got an appalling looking livery on it. I don't know if this is related to Hello Kitty. I assume it might be. Pinky Jet, it's called. What more can I say? It's an abomination. I've been getting a little bit out there with some of my livery purchases in recent times, but this is so far wrong. It's just awful. I'm going that one in the gas guzzler. Let's not even talk too much about that. Next up, there's an A321neo, and this comes to those giant engines again. It's Hawaiian Airlines. It's N208HA. It's got a scheme which says Welcome Voyagers on it. Yeah, I mean, there have been quite a few A320neos made, and by Hawaiian Airlines ones, by Gemini, and looking at the last one, which was made this year, to be honest, it doesn't look great. Again, those engines really ruin it, but just the cockpit, and sometimes these A320s can look bad, and I don't think this one looks very good. I imagine this one will look very similar, just with those extra advertising slogans on it, and that's probably the reason that JC have been allowed to make it, because of licensing associated with those. Who knows? Unless this is slightly, I'm not sure, but speculating there. But it's not doing much for me. I'm going to put that one in gas guzzler as well, to be honest. A better A320 is the Qantas Freight A320 Santa's Freight, the Christmas colours, which they just did, VHX-F4. This looks pretty cool. I liked the idea. It was nicely executed. I really like the fact that you got Santa walking off with the red from the back of the fuselage. Look cool. And their A321 CEOs often look okay. Not spectacular, but okay. So I think this one is better. And yeah, this one is definitely quite a bit better. So much better, in fact, that I think I'll even put it into high flyer. And I don't usually put releases that use this mold into high flyer, but this one probably would be okay. And the A321 CEOs I've been seeing recently have looked, I say, better. I mean, they're not going to win any awards. Moving on, and we have an A330-200 in the colours of Iberia. It's One World, ECM Yankee Alpha. There have only been two. Well, this is only the second, Iberia A330-200. The other one is by Aero Classics. This is the first one in One World scheme. Those are all very positive things. The A330 mould is okay. Not going to win any awards yet again. But I'm going to put this one up in high flyer. It's at least a core airline, and it's a special scheme, but not a really weird special scheme. Yeah, not a bad choice. Next up, we've got A350-900, China Southern, the Mutai scheme, B30 Charlie Echo. This one's coming in normal and flaps down. This has been announced by Panda Models already. It's also been announced by Aviation 400. Probably will get made by NG2. It's not going to be better, this version, than those. So, yeah, it's very much a workhorse model for me. Moving into Boeing territory, and we've got another Hawaiian, and this one is a 717. Now, the 717 mould that JC Wings uses and Gemini has is nice. I like it. I reviewed and own a TWA version a year or two ago, and that came out really well. So I like the mould a lot here. It does the job very nicely. Hawaiian Airlines, I'm sure there have been quite a few of these releases by Gemini as well. The reason that I presume the JC get to make this one is because it is wearing a special scheme, and that special scheme would require extra licensing, which no one wants to pay. So it's wearing the Moana 2 livery. I had the thrill of seeing Moana 2 at the cinema recently. It's nowhere near as good as the first Moana, let me tell you. And yeah, it's not overly exciting me, this scheme, I have to admit. But at the same time, like the mould, no one else has made the scheme, yada yada yada. So I'll put this one into high flyer as well. It could be maybe workhorse, but I'll be high flyering that, I think. We have a couple of 737-800 special schemes next up. One is all Nippon, wearing an Expo 2025 scheme, JA58 Alpha November. The scheme itself looks like it's probably fine, but the mould from JC stinks. Most recent examples have been a bit better, but it's still not great. You know, I've gascogged a few in the past. I'll workhorse it. And similarly, the next model, which is another Santa-related Qantas scheme, VH-VZX, is also going to get the same workhorse treatment. The mould just isn't up to it, and anyone else producing these would make a better version. But it looks nice. Livery, that is. Whether the finished model looks nice, harder to tell. 4 models left to discuss, all wide bodies. The first one up is a 747-400 freighter for Cathay Cargo with the new big titles. The problem here is that JC don't have a modern mould for the 747-400 freighter, unlike for the 400 passenger variant. So you're going to get the old seamed mould, and that is a bit of a drag. There are other 747-400 freighter moulds out there. I'm looking at HX models now, and this is the sort of model they're likely to make. So this one's not doing much for me, I have to say. I'm going to put this one in the workhorse. Then we've got a 777-200 ER from Singapore Airlines, 9V SRN. Now that's not such an unusual airline or aircraft for JC to make, and they have historically been making some of these. So there has been a Singapore Airlines 777 from JC Wings in 2023, but that was wearing the updated version of scheme with the much bigger titles, and this one is wearing the original scheme with the smaller Singapore Airlines titles and the aircraft name Jubilee, which was what they were originally called. And I remember seeing these Jubilee 777s at Singapore when I transited through in the early 2000s. So this one is a bit more unique. Again, it's an example of a model that hasn't been made for a while, and of JC looking at their back catalogue and seeing models they've made a long time ago and thinking maybe we should remake those, and I think that's good. There have been a few Jubilee 777s, you know, historically from other brands as well, but there haven't been a lot recently. So, yeah, I think this is actually going to be a good one. Now, the only concern here is that sometimes they're not printing the cockpit windows in the right place on these 777s. Assuming that they do, I'm going to put this one up in the high flyer. 2 models left, and the penultimate model is an Air Premier 787. Hardly the sort of model which is going to get a lot of love from myself. This reg is HL8701. They made HL8387 in 2021, so it's been 4 years since they made this. This one's going to come flaps up and down, I believe. Yeah, Air Premier's got a really mediocre livery. The original model looked good, and obviously the JC787 is very nice. So that's all fine. And then this will be fine too, but I'm still going to workhorse it. And we end with a McDonnell Douglas product. It's an MD-11. It's China Airlines, and this is no surprise to be seeing this. It's B151, and the reason it's no surprise is because Panda Models has a new MD-11 mold, and C Models, one of the brands that use Panda, has already released this model. It's announced it, and I've seen that they are available now in China. I've got a copy of it on the way. I may well give it a review because I want to see what the new Panda MD looks like. It means that there's no real reason to be getting this one at all. So, because it's not going to be worse than the JC Wings mold. Not that the JC Wings mold is bad, but it's just very old. So, my recommendation here would be to, just look around and choose your MD-11s in the future from the best provider of MD-11s, which I think will be the Panda. I can't confirm that now, but I think it will be from what I've seen, and it means the Phoenix and the JC Wings molds are long obsolete. So this one's a workhorse for that reason. It won't be bad, but it is obsolete. Okay, cool, and that rounds up 20 JC Wings announcements for January 2025. Obviously, a lot of filler here and a lot of future models, but we've got that UHB McDonnell Douglas MD-81, which is a spectacular release. Really impressive. Unducted fans look cool, and they really look cool on this MD-80. So that is a top-notch model, and it doesn't bother me so much that the other 19 don't really excite me, because this one is enough to keep my interest. Okay, guys, well, that's the first one of these out of the way. NG Models have announced a big list of hints, and those hints look good, actually. There are some really good possibilities to come out of those hints, so I hope to see that the actual models they're going to make soon, and then there'll be a ranking video coming up. But we know at least one of them is an Eastern TriStar, because Buchanan have said that will be, and that alone is going to be a great model. So lots to look forward to in 2025, and I hope you keep on watching these videos and enjoying the content for the year. I'll see you next time, but it's bye for now.